Welcome to this episode of the Inspìred Evolution. This one is dynamite. It's about the power of choice. Everything in your life up until this moment is an accumulation of the choices that you've made. Think about that for a sec, yeah? Now, you can actually choose your future, choose your reality. Anything is possible with the power of choice. That is the theme, the ethos, the kind of heart of this episode. Brendon Watt, amazing access consciousness facilitator, speaker. He's traveling the world, doing this work with the world. Dude, it is an absolute treat of a conversation, and it is an honor to be able to share this conversation with you. Choose wisely, choose life, yeah? Choose consciousness, choose conscious living. This is such an incredible conversation. I know you're going to love it. If you're new to the Inspìred Evolution family, hit subscribe. There's going to be a moment in this podcast at some point where you go, oh my God, I got a massive takeaway. That shifted me, because I know that happened to me just in this conversation as well. So when that moment hits, give us a thumbs up. And as always, family, stay inspired, keep evolving. I'll see you in the episode. Welcome to the Inspìred Evolution, and ladies, gentlemen, plants and creatures of all kinds, it is a treat to be here today. We've got with us Brendon Watt. Brendon, how are you, brother?
Hey, Amrit, how you doing? I love the way you start this show.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is the show that I want to be on. This is my kind of show.
Yeah, if you haven't had your morning coffee, it'll wake you up.
Yeah, true story.
Yeah, awesome, man. And it's really wonderful to drop in with a fellow Aussie. For those tuning in, like a large base of our audience here in the Inspìred Evolution space here in Australia. So you guys are going to feel very at home, very comfortable with this, because Brendon's actually, we were chatting before, he from the Sunshine Coast, he's spending a lot of time living there. For those tuning into Brendon for the first time, just give me one quick sec. Yeah, he is a speaker, he's an entrepreneur, he's a business and life mentor. He covers, man, like once you start diving into Brendon's work, there is so the multidimensionality of what he gets into and the depth with which he gets into it. It's really cool to have you here, man. He facilitates several special access consciousness programs, and I think that has him now in Houston, actually delivering that work from like this access consciousness hub for the world. So, man, things like money, conscious businesses, relationships, even things about perspective and possibility and choice. So, man, there's so much we can cover off in today, dude. It is such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
Oh, it's so good to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so let's get started, man. Knowing so many places that we could start, I think I just want to like sort of go straight towards the kind of heart of everything, which I feel is present in your work. Like, how important is our relationship with consciousness? Do we need to define consciousness to start there? Like, what do you describe like consciousness? Does it have something to do with perspective? I'm putting words in your mouth. I should shut up and just ask the question. Please, what do you think?
Well, I had no idea what consciousness was. And when I started with Access, and they were talking about consciousness, and I was like, but to me, I mean, growing up in Australia, and especially on the Sunshine Coast, it was like consciousness was this kind of like this some other universe that I was like, I don't know what that is. Like, don't talk to me about consciousness. Talk to me about basically all of the smaller things that I decided I was. But when I came along to Access and I heard their definition of it, which was consciousness is where everything and everyone is included, and nothing and no one is judged. And I was like, oh, that's what I'd like to have. And that was like that. I mean, we can all get a bit of a grasp on what that is then, and go, oh wow, and then look at it and go, because I don't know about you, but for me especially, 11 years ago now, I was my own worst enemy. Dynamically, I'd be just judging myself constantly, and it was like, so getting this was, I would say it's a big step even to get that, because it's something that, like, when you look at it and go, I can actually get out of judgment. That is something that I could get to. I'm not even there yet. I still judge myself, but it's like, but I can say that yes, it is, because I do know for me that it's like it has gotten so much less. To get to a point in your life where you actually start liking yourself is kind of a big thing.
It actually is, isn't it? It's such a subtle, when you're talking about it, it feels so subtle. It's like, I'm just going to stop judging and I'm just going to build a relationship with myself. And when, you're hearing that conversation, like externally, it's like, oh, yeah, it almost runs the risk, and part of me for going there, and I'm definitely not saying this about your work, but even sounds a bit wishy-washy until you've had the visceral experience of like how much like goes on in your inner world. And then you're like, oh man, like the inner narrative, like the inner critic is just like a bit of an ass, like it's just consistently having a crack. And I love the way you describe that, because oftentimes when we, I guess I'm speaking from my own experience, like judgment, we generally think like we're judgmental when we're judging others, like externally and out there. But you bring this whole relationship with judgment, like focus centeredly on yourself, and your relationship with judging yourself. You mentioned all the small things. Can you give us a bit of a snapshot, like, because I'm sure there must have been some sort of, was there some sort of like, how did you come across access? Like, was it some sort of like all these small things sort of come like piling into like a moment that sort of, sort of spat you out into, oh damn, like that was painful? And was the journey of the transformation to coming to this, or was it smooth?
No, it was not smooth. And I'm like, my whole life I've been extreme. Like if I'm going to do something from growing up to,
you're not from Australia, are you? No, I'm
kidding. Right? It's an Aussie thing. I think it's definitely an Aussie thing. But it's like, so I did this extreme too. So I basically got to rock bottom. Like I'd hit a point in my life where, so it was 11 years ago, and I was sharing a bedroom with my 4-year-old son at that time. He was 4, in my mother's house, this tiny little bedroom with this kid. And he would wake up in the morning and be like, Dad, like, what are we doing today? And he'd be all excited and just stoked to be waking up, and especially waking up next to his dad. He's just like, I get to share a bedroom with my dad. Like, this is awesome. So there's 4-year-old kids going, I get to share a bedroom with my dad. This is like the best thing ever. And his dad's laying there going, I hate myself. I hate my life. I don't know how to raise this kid. I was full of doubt. I was full of judgment of myself. I didn't know where to go. Like it was, I was doing, reading spiritual stuff, and I was looking and looking and looking. And I got to a point where I basically it just given up. And this one day I woke up and I went, okay. And I didn't even know what I was asking. Like, you talk about consciousness and you talk about, the universe and God or whatever. And it's like, and I was just going, I don't know who I'm asking right now, but I need help. And it was interesting because the next day I found this little ad in the newspaper, and it's funny because Dane here, who you've had on here, he tells a very similar story. So I'm like, yeah, we've got it, out of the newspaper. But I read this tiny little ad in the newspaper that says, all of life comes to me with peace, joy, and glory. Call Mel. And this tiny little pink ad in the classifieds of the Sunshine Coast Daily.
Of all places.
Of all places.
Was it really there, or was it just there for you? Like I'm feeling the serendipity of all of this. Yeah, go on.
It may have just been there for me, but it's like, so I called this girl and she said, all right, so I do this thing called the Access Consciousness bars. At worst case, it's going to be like you've had a great massage, and at best case, your life will change. And I went, I didn't know what it was, but it was one of those things where you just like, I have to do this. And I went and saw this girl, and she was like, okay, can I like, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to run this body process on you, which is the Access Consciousness bars. But also, do you want me to like ask you a few questions and use this crazy clearing statement that we have? And I was like, basically just went, I don't care what you do, just help. Yeah. And like, she did this, and I laid there and just sobbed for an hour and a half. And was just, it was just coming out. It was just coming out of me. And and she finished up and I got in my car after it, and I was just like, what just happened? And I had this peace in my world again that I hadn't had since I was a tiny kid. And that was the beginning. From there, I just went, okay, so now what? And it's been a journey since. It definitely hasn't been all up. So it's been up and down, you know, but a lot more up now. And it's just been a gift.
Yeah, I'm loving that. And thank you so much for sharing that, because some part of me, what I'm hearing as well is like, you know, in that process of where you cracked open and went to the access bar and, you know, you kind of had that first process.
Yeah.
I'm even hearing that you weren't potentially able to label what was coming out and what you were clearing and any of that. But, and again, this is that subtlety, right? Like on the external, it's, you know, there's just some tears, or just some tears. I should probably be conscious of how I say that. But, you know, like internally, you know, you don't even know what was clearing, but probably the profundity of the depth of the experience probably stayed with you.
Yeah.
I'm imagining, and that's probably what informs so much of the work that you do today, huh?
Oh, big time. And it's like, but it's like this. I got into a point where it's like, you know, you just basically get to a point. Well, I don't know if this happens for anyone else, but I'm guessing it does. It's like you get to a point where you're like, how did I end up here?
Yeah.
How did I get from like this joyful little kid that I do recall that would run around and, you know, and have fun and just be like, what are we doing next? To basically somebody who's looking at a kid the same age and not even wanting to be here anymore. And I was like, but, you know, with my child, like there was abuse in my childhood and quite a lot of it. And there was, you know, and a lot of different things growing up that I just locked away. It was like, I was like, I don't know how to deal with this. So I'm just going to lock it away. And it got to a point where it was like, something's got to give. Something's got to give. And the thing is that like now I'm so grateful for it. And I'm so grateful for the life that I've had and the people that I've had in my life, because it's like, I get to, in facilitating now, it's like, I can draw upon so much with, hey, I get it. You know, I get we live in a world right now where it's like, it could be a lot greater. And I get we live in a world right now where people aren't necessarily as kind as they could be. And, you know, but we've all learned from somewhere. And the way I see it is, if there's enough of us now who go, you know what, it's time to have something different, then we get to have a different world.
Yeah. It's a total inspired evolution. I
love that. Total inspired evolution.
There's a party story that I just wanted to tune into there, which it just struck a chord. It's, you know, oftentimes when we're out there doing the work, you know, and especially people may potentially see personal development leaders as, you know, being so self-motivated and so self-driven and, you know, so like, you know, and oftentimes that's probably what a lot of people sort of externally see, and that's probably what they're looking for. It's like, oh, that person's so self-driven that I'd love to be that internally inspired to sort of do my own work. But you mentioned just, you know, how in that moment where, you know, you woke up and you know, you with your 4-year-old son and he's had that, he's full of beans and you're just like, I'm not sure if I'm, you know, like just the contrast between those two energies. I just sort of wanted to go there because oftentimes I don't think we talk about it enough, and it's probably not the healthiest, but who cares? It happens, right? Like we often change for others. Like, can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, I spent my life doing that. It was basically the way that I'd created myself was, what does everybody need from me?
Others' expectations. You know?
Yeah. Others' expectations. So it's like, as long as, you know, like you grow up as a kid, and it's like for a lot of us, you know, well, for me, definitely, it's like my parents weren't happy. So it's like, okay, how do I make you happy? What do I need to be so that they can be happy? And that, even from a young age, it's always this, what do I need to be so that this person's okay? And it gets to a point where and for a lot of us, and for a lot of the people that I've talked to and worked with, it gets to a point where you just go, where did I go?
Yeah.
Like, where am I in the computation of my life and living right now? I am non-existent. And that, I get, is far more common than we want to acknowledge, but it is what is. And it is to a different degree for different people. But it's like, and so, but then we also do this switch thing where it's like, okay, well, if I'm not making it about everybody else, then I'm selfish, you know, or I'm narcissistic, or I'm whatever. And we've got all of these different definitions of that. So where do I go from there? Well, for me, what I've noticed is the more I choose for me, like truly for me, the more I'm including everybody else in that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's such a, I mean, it's such an interesting way that we're educated about being, and we're educated about having us is, you know what, give everybody else what they want. That's a way of, you know, having joy and happiness and whatever. And it's like, it never works. And I don't know about you, but for me, when I'm around somebody who's being them, I want to be more of me. It's like, even with us now, like talking to you, it's like, you have this sense of you. You're like, here I am. So I'm like, and it's interesting because I'm like, and I'm realizing this talking to you now, because I'm like, oh, here I am too. Like, here we are. And and you know, people could see that as, oh, that's arrogant. That's well, you can see it however you want to see it. But what if we could all just ask to be more of who we actually are? And it's like, that's just, it's such a different space to live from.
Yeah, totally, brother. And thank you so much for that kind acknowledgement.
You're awesome.
It's touch wood. It's a really interesting piece, bro, when you start navigating from this, like, you know, what do I need to be versus just being. Like, you know, you just sort of oh man, you've just described that so gorgeously. I love that. But it's such a massive shift to go from, you know, consistently living into our own expectations, other people's expectations. The question, where did all those expectations come from, is a totally worthy one. But it's like, can I just be? And like, you know, you talk about business, you talk about money, like, you know, even just like finding value in, if I would just is there value enough in the world for me to just hang out and be here?
Yeah. True story though. It's like, but that's where we start creating this image of us, is we try and find our value in what other people value. You know, so other people might value, well, you're only valuable if you have this amount of money, or if you have a relationship like this, or if you have this many kids, or whatever that structure is that they live from. And so if you're looking for value in you're looking to be valued by others with that structure that they used, you're always diminishing you.
Yeah, you're kind of like, sorry, I interrupted. It's kind of like you're leveraged out from that self that you were describing before, right? Because you're leveraged into their perspective and their view on the world rather than your own.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you know, I've started looking at a lot more recently. What is actually true for me? You know, you'd think I'd be a lot closer to that, but I started realizing even very recently, I was like, wow, I still don't even have a sense of that. And so for me, what I was doing was, let me figure out what it is I'd like my life to be like before I choose. And what I've learned more and do every day is, it's the choices we make that create our lives. So you don't necessarily have to go, you know what, I know what my future is going to be, therefore I have a path to travel. It's, what if you could just choose now and course correct along the way? Start choosing to see what it is that's true for you. You know, like when you make a choice and it lights your world up, and you're just like, that's something that's true for you. And then you'll make another choice where it's like, well, that made me feel like shit. But for a lot of us, we keep making those choices.
Yeah. The conversation around choices is a really intriguing one, because I know you deliver a workshop on the choice of possibilities. Can you give us a little bit of an insight in terms of, Yeah, what does the choice of possibilities even mean, and what are we talking about when we come along to the choice of possibilities?
Well, good question. I'm actually starting one here in Brazil tomorrow.
There we
So
go.
I'm ready. I'm pumped. But I'll tell you about the time I did my first class, like went to this class 11 years ago, and and I walked into it just basically at that time in my life. I thought when I went to that class, I was like, okay, what am I asking for? Like, what am I, I was new to this. I was going, what am I like asking the universe for? Like, what's my request? What's my demand? And it's interesting to look at now, and I talk about it because at that point in my life, I thought I wanted more girls and more money.
Mm.
For anyone who knows
plenty of
me,
people can relate.
well, I get that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is we've got to start where we are. And so for me, it's like, so I walked into that class having no clue that I actually desired a great world. I actually desired to be a leader in that greater world and to be something that people could go, wow, I'd like to be more of me. And I walked into this, one thing I got at, well, one of many things that I got out of that class was Gary Douglas said, your life is today the creation from every choice that you've ever made. And I went, it hit me because I went, what? Because for me, what I'd been doing my whole life was victim. I went, well, I'm not happy because of all this abuse, and I can't make money because I grew up poor, and I can't have a great relationship because I've never seen one. And there was all of these reasons and justifications for why I couldn't succeed in my life. And when he said that, I just went, holy shit, if I can create this as my life with the choices I've been making, what else is possible if I start making different choices? So in that, my life started turning around dynamically, but also put me in the driver's seat of it. I went, oh,
yeah, the responsibility.
No one's going to create this for me. It's my life. So I'm grateful for that awareness at that time, because I see where a lot of people do that. And it's like, hey, I get it. I get when you've had these things in your life that shouldn't have happened to you, but I do get it. And there is something always greater beyond it. It's a gift to know that our choices create everything in our lives, and also to get that we haven't really been taught how to use it.
Yeah, that's very true.
We've been like, for a lot of us, we use as in navigating our lives, we'll look at, okay, well, I only want to make the right choices because I don't want to be wrong. Or, I'll only make the choices that are going to make me look cool, or are going to, whatever that is. But it's like, so we're navigating our lives with judgment. And when we've actually got a whole lot more choice available to us.
Yeah, I love that. There's the paralysis by analysis that you're talking to, the trying to fit in that you're talking to, and we're basing our choices back on that. And I can feel, that circles back to all those small things you're referring to before. But just before we go into potentially, choosing wisely, I think I just want to ask about how daunting, and I think this is coming just from having coached quite a few people through this space myself, just that I had that moment myself where I realized, oh, no one's coming to save me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and the victim archetype is a really strong one in the world we live in, and for better or worse, I can really identify that, especially in a capitalistic society, it's beneficial for certain people / organizations, for people to feel like they need what they don't have and be in that wanting space and being in that victim space, whether it's by grand design, intentionally or unintentionally, is the verdict still out for me. But that moment, nonetheless, when you start realizing, oh, no one's coming to save me, and it's kind of bittersweet when I feel into like when I've sat across coaching calls with it, because people all of a sudden go, oh, that's amazing that I'm so empowered, like you've been describing, like the choice and the responsibility of choices with me. But at the same time, it's like this abyss that you're facing of like, oh, holy crap, like it's actually all on me as well. Like there's such a duality to it. Was that true for your experience? Can we talk about that a little bit? Like,
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I think it's got a lot to do with, like, we build a comfort zone, and it's like, as long as I've got a relationship that works, and I've got enough money, and I've got, all of those things that will make our lives what they are. And it's like, so anything that's going to take us beyond that is like outside of the pool of choice. And that thing with like that thing with like where it is all on you, it's like, it kind of seems daunting, but it's also really exciting at the same time, because you're kind of just gone from, well, I'm kind of surrounded by walls, to now there are no walls. Now I've gone from having this, knowable area that I choose from, my comfort zone. I know if I choose this, I've got this and got this, and you've got that. But then you go, oh, wow, take away those walls, and now I've got a whole lot more choice and a whole lot more of what I could create me as, what I could create my life and living as. It can seem to a lot of people as though they have less, quote unquote, idea of direction, which is true, because you've lost your predetermined path that you've been walking. And now it's like, now that path has gone from, you've got one beam of light shining down that path, to that path has just opened into whatever it is,
infinite possibility, potentially.
Infinite possibilities. And it's like, holy shit, now what do I choose? Well, that's where it's go, like, take yourself out of trying to figure it out and go, okay, I have 10 seconds to choose. What do I choose? And one of the tools that we give, in Access Consciousness is 10-second increments of choice. Is, okay, choice is good for 10 seconds. What do you choose? And a couple of things with this, because it gets you a lot more present with what you're choosing. Because most of us just go on autopilot of, well, I'm choosing it. I don't even know what I'm choosing. Don't talk to me about choice. I'm just doing my thing. Well, it's like, when you get a lot more present with it, you start recognizing, okay, each choice I'm making is creating something into my future. And if you're willing to get that, then you can start, like I said before, with that thing of navigating our lives with judgment, is now you get so present in your life, realizing that you've got a whole lot more choices, and also realizing that each choice you make is creating your life. Now you start navigating your life based on energy and not based on judgment. So you go from, which was an interesting thing for me, because I'd done it on judgment. So now you go from, well, that lightens me up. That gives me more of a sense of me. That's what I'm now using to navigate my life.
I love that. I love that, because you're talking about the visceral experience. Because one of the things that sort of just flared up for me is like, we're releasing judgment to be present to, that 10-second opportunity of making a choice. But there's a part of me that goes, but then are we not judging our choices? And I know that we're not judging them. I can feel it. We're actually discerning in terms of beyond judgment, like what is actually our authentic choice in there. But can you tell us a little bit about, and that level, when we're choosing, what is the difference between judgment and discernment?
Well, I would say that, the difference between judgment and discernment is basically, judgment is a lot more obvious. A lot more obvious when you get it's either right, or it's wrong, or it's good, or it's bad. But the other thing, and so discernment is a little bit sneakier, it can be, and it's like, but the thing with judgment is, it's like 95% of the time we don't even recognize we're doing it. Like, it won't even be necessarily a cognitive thing, but you've just got this some image of yourself where it's like, what, I'm just somewhere deep down inside, I just think I'm wrong, so everything about me is wrong. So it's not, that's why it can be so sneaky. And then all of a sudden you might meet somebody who's like, you might have somebody in your life who has no judgment of you, which, and if you're lucky enough to have that, that is awesome.
Touch wood.
If not, please ask for one to show up. Please ask for somebody in your life that has that. And I'm grateful to have quite a few people like that in my life, and it's like, and I'll be around somebody like that, and it becomes very obvious where I'm in judgment of myself because they don't have it of me, and they're like, who are you looking at? Like, and I'm like, and I just, like I said, I still do it. I'm so much further out of judgment than I was 11 years ago. So, I'll have close friends and I'll be talking to them about something. I'll be like, who are you looking at? Like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, what if you didn't actually judge yourself for that? And I'm like, whoa, and it's a different way to be, because the thing I've learned also, and it's become very obvious, is judgment doesn't create. It doesn't create anything, So you go, well, you know what, I'm really shitty at making money, and that's how I'm gonna judge myself so much about that it's gonna create some change. It never creates change. It only creates more of what you're judging.
Yeah.
And I tell this joke that people probably don't like, but people sometimes laugh. I use this analogy of, okay, have you ever looked in the mirror and judged yourself for having, for having a fat ass, or being too old, or being wrinkly, or whatever, and it changed? And
all the time.
And I
hashtag never.
People are like, when you put it like that,
stop
when
speaking
you put
truth.
it like
this
that,
hurts.
I guess. But it's like, and it's like, we've got to be a little bit more humorous with ourselves too. It's like, where you go, and I do it too. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting wrinkles and shit, and I'm like, yeah, that's really cool that you're doing that right now, but maybe ask a question, or ask what else is possible with this.
Yeah, it's there's the inner voice of the inner voice that we carry is, it's remarkable just how, and what I'm hearing is like, it's our subconscious. We have these kind of templates, these imprints that we that we judge ourselves, that they them, like the templates that it feels almost themselves have this propensity to want to judge from this place of criticism. But I love that insight. That's a massive takeaway for myself. It's like, judgment is not creative. Like, that is so powerful. That is so powerful, man. Like, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Like, yeah, it's so true. It's like, at what point have you been kind of pointing the finger and looking down, even if it's at yourself or someone else, and that's kind of helped change the situation? I don't. Yeah, that's really profound. Wow.
Yeah, it's the other thing that helped me actually a lot was recognizing that judgment and gratitude can't coexist. Because I was always looking for, okay, there's got to be more with getting out of judgment, because I was like, apart from saying, make a different choice or recognize when you're doing it and stop yourself, it was like, okay, but what else? Like, what else? And in recognizing that you can't judge something and be grateful for it. It doesn't work. So it's one or the other. So it's like, this is where, like, having that gratitude for yourself, or having the gratitude for everything in your life, is what allows more to show up, more of it and more of everything. And it starts basically bringing down those walls that you build with judgment, and it starts allowing you to receive a lot more. Of all the gifts in life. No, you go.
Yeah, I love that. And here at the Inspìred Evolution, we run this Live Your Purpose program, and we go through your vision, and we dive straight into your mindset. And the first piece in mindset, we call it transcend your victim, but it's all about gratitude. And I love that, like you describing that so clearly. You can't hold judgment and gratitude at the same time, and it's so true, because even like looking back on your story, and going, you know what, actually, even the bits that were really hard, the parts that you're so willing to become a victim to, or just have a natural propensity to become a victim, because it's so easy. Like, you were somewhat potentially traumatized by some of those experiences, but to even turn around and go, actually, I'm grateful for those, because they're the ones that actually were like so instrumental in my transformation. They actually landed me here. There's always that silver lining if you look close enough, you know? Do you find that as well?
True, true story.
Yeah.
True story. And there is, like, I look at, it's like there's a gift in everything. And you could say that, and that could sound so, like,
Wishy-washy,
once
yeah,
again,
again, yeah.
wishy-washy, and like, and it's like, like if you've been abused as a kid, which
Hmm.
I was, and which
Hmm.
a lot of people have been, and then you hear somebody saying there's a gift in there's a gift in everything, and it's like you would just want to go, you know what, you're an asshole for saying that, and I get that. So, but it's like,
Mm.
so I get that, but it's like, does that resistance to it create anything?
Yo.
Does that fight against it create anything? And it's like, whereas if you look at, okay, what's the gift in it? And so for me, it's like, I think one of the biggest gifts for me was I knew and know now nothing can break me.
Mm.
Nothing can break me. And it's like, and I know that if I can get through something like that, I can get through anything. So there, straight away, that takes me out of this victim mindset, this victim mentality, into, wow, I must be like a powerful mofo if I can get through that shit and still be here today. But then also
Yeah.
still be here today and talk to people about it with the vulnerability of, hey, I get it.
Mhm.
And I get that shit shouldn't have happened to you. And I do get that. And now let's go from there. Let's unravel that. Let's unstick all of the things that you've stuck yourself in with it. And let's explore what it is to be you. And when it's like, when you talk to somebody like that who's been doing the victim thing for a long time, and they're kind of like, oh, I'm kind of getting excited about what you're talking about right now. Like, this feels a whole lot better than kind of turning the lights off and shutting my curtains and watching TV all day and being depressed. It's like, yeah, let's explore you. Let's explore who you are and what you could choose and what you could be.
And I love that. We're going from like the inner to the outer now. It's like, so on that journey, like, when you can start to choose what can be, what is you. Another one of the things that, you facilitate is it really about the money? So is it really about the money when you're exploring you in the external world? And what does that really mean? Like, what is it if it's not about the money?
Yeah, well, good question, because it's like, what is it if it's not about the money? Because I mean, you look at, we've got three main excuses that we use for to get out of something or to not create it, or just as our justification for not choosing. Is money is one, health is another, and time is another. They're three things that you cannot argue with. If someone says to you, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, and I'm sick, you ain't arguing with that. They are not choosing it. So, but it's like, one of the things I found was, I was using money as a justification for not choosing. I'd say I don't have the money for that, thinking that money would basically set the parameters of what I could or couldn't choose. And when I realized that if I choose something and then allow the money to come, my life would start expanding. And it once again took me out of being the victim to money into being able to create it. And it's like, I got to this point, probably, I think it was like 8 years ago, when I was like, I couldn't change my financial reality. This was not changing. And so I got really present with it one day, and I was looking at it, and I started asking this question. One of the things that we talk about in Access is, if something's got a lot of charge to it or keeps showing up in your life, there's something that you and it's not changing. There's something you either love about it or hate about it. And I was like, well, there's no way that I could like love having no money, and I looked at it one day and I got present with it, and I went, okay, so what do I hate about money? And I went, oh, every time money came up when I was a kid, there was always conflict, always fighting, always arguing. And I went, I hated the conflict. So I'd put money and conflict together. When I got to that, I went, oh, is that actually my point of view? And I went, no, it's not my point of view. I actually like money. Like I like having it. I like just the energy of it. And so I went, okay, you know what? That's not my point of view. I'm changing that. I'm actually going to start, I'm changing my point of view from hating money to actually a question of what's it going to take to create it. From that day forth, my financial reality started changing also.
The conscious choice, once again, of how you relate to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's so much in there. There's also money, there's also health, there's also time. There's those are like the three biggest, like those are three
right?
really big things that we come up against. Yeah. And so in all of those dimensions, is it a matter of, just asking ourselves the question in terms of, is this really mine, or where did I inherit this thought pattern from with regards to my health, with regards to my relationship with my time here, with regards to my money? So let's take health as an example. Yeah, like, are we choosing our health? Is that what you're describing in there as well?
Well, basically, and it's like, and there can be a lot of different things, but it's like as soon as we take a fixed point of view about anything, like you'll take, so for, with the money, what I talked about, that was my fixed point of view. I don't want conflict. I don't want
Mm,
money. And
mm,
so that point of view, our point of view creates our reality. And it's the
mm,
same with our health.
mhm,
So, for somebody who has the point of view that, I'm sick of this, or is always got that as their kind of go-to,
mhm,
I'm sick of this, I'm sick of this, I'm sick of this. They're probably sick a lot of the time. Or,
mm,
or maybe your point of view about aging, it could be, I'm only going to live till I'm 60. That's long enough. That point of view right there creates the aging of your body. So it's like, and the other thing with this too, though, is how many of them are your points of view?
mm.
And we're all psychics, little SpongeBobs of the universe. We all walk
Yeah.
around, picking up on everybody else's shit and then going, um, and then start living it as if it's ours. And that's
Mm,
why I said before, like I'd gotten to a point in my life where I was like, where did I go?
mm,
Who is this person? Like, where's me? Where's the happy me? Where's the, and it's like, it was gone, but
mhm,
I was being everybody else.
mhm,
And it's
mhm,
like, so, you might as a kid have a parent who's unhappy, and you've brought their unhappiness, their point of view about unhappiness, their point of view about their body, their health, time, money, all of this, and you've gone, okay, that's the way to function. You've brought these points of view and started creating a reality from it.
mhm,
So one of the tools that we've got in Access Consciousness, because the more you're willing to get to everything is just an interesting point of view, which is basically you're in allowance of everything.
mm,
Nothing sticks you. Is so every fixed point of view that you have is be present with it and go, interesting point of view. I have that point of view, like, and for a lot of us, we've got some that are sharp. They're like, no, that's my point of view and I'm sticking to it.
mm.
They're usually the ones that are holding a lot of the other stuff together. So it's
Yeah.
just be present with it and get to this is the way to get to allowance of you, and everything is interest. You know what? Interesting point of view. I have that point of view. You know what?
Mm,
Money's really hard to make. Wow. Interesting point of view. I have that point of view. Well, my body's aging. Huh. Interesting point of view. I have that point of view. And it starts like lightening your world up, because you start going, oh, if I don't have that point of view, maybe I don't have to, maybe it's not true for me, but also maybe I don't have to create that as my life anymore.
thank you for sharing that.
You're
I want to
welcome.
discuss a little bit around it starts lightening up your worldview. When you start to share it, I personally relate because I've been exposed to the work of that you're so heavily invested in with Access Consciousness. But for those that are tuning in, like, can you describe like lightening your point of view? Like, that may not be something that everybody has a visceral experience of.
Yeah.
Um, how do you describe for one to sort of connect into that feeling for the first time, or like how do we start building a visceral experience of that for ourselves? Like how, like, I know it as a visceral personal experience because of many of the tools that have been shared. Do you have any tools, or like what would you describe in there? Yeah.
Oh, definitely. An awesome question. Because it's like, okay, how do I get to that? Can you give
Mm,
me something pragmatic to get to that? And yes. And it's like, so the thing is when you choose something that's true for you, it'll give you that sense of lightness. And when you're choosing something that is not true for you, it'll always have that clunk in your world. It'll always have a sense of heaviness. So what's true for you is light. What's a lie for you is heavy.
mhm,
And okay, how do I get to that? Well, it's like what I say to people is, have you ever made a choice in your life knowing it wasn't going to work out
mm,
and made it anyway? Did you take somebody home knowing that it wasn't going to be fun and you took them home anyway? or you started a relationship, or you started a job, or whatever that is, and people go, yeah, far too many times that I want to acknowledge. But see, that's where you get that sense of, I know this isn't going to work. I know this isn't true for me. So but we choose it anyway, because we should, or people are telling us to, or whatever that is. But it's like, what I would say to people is start getting the difference is look at areas of your life that you're choosing right now that you know there's something else possible with, but you're choosing it anyway. And then go, oh, see, because the thing with this is, and what I'm grateful for is, we do actually know. We do know what's true for us. We just haven't really been going for that, because for a lot of us, what's true for us isn't true for another person. You know, so you're trying to go, well, how's it going to affect them? Like, what's this going to show up for them? And rather than, okay, so what's true for me here? And you start, like, look at the areas of your life where it just gives you more of that sense of you. You know, you'll make, like, for me growing up, it was like, I grew up in the ocean. Surfing for me was just, yes, put me, anything could be going on around me, and it was like, just please, ocean, where are you?
Yeah.
Don't ask me why I moved to Houston, but it's like, so that I knew that's true. That lightens my world up. So now that I have an awareness of that energy, so when I'm in the ocean, I have more of me, and I know that. So now I have an awareness of that energy. I go, okay, so where else can that energy be in my life? Because doesn't have to be this either or, but you start getting this thing of going, well, so if I can have more of me in the ocean, then what if I could have more of me with this? And you start recognizing that it's not the ocean giving you the energy, it's you and the choices that you're making to be what you are in the ocean. And then when you do that, you go, oh, holy shit. So you mean that I could have the space that I am in nature, or the space that I am around people that don't judge me, or the space that I am when I'm just being me? You know, you mean I could have that in all the areas of my life where I'm not being me? Yeah. And you can, and you know it. You just got to choose it. And it's like, that's where it's like, you asked before about this thing with the choice of possibilities. Choice is the powerhouse of the universe. And we have it, and it's like, but we haven't been educated on how to use it for a lot of us. So it's like, it is truly recognizing that that with choice comes possibilities. So whenever you like feel stuck in something, it's rather than go, I'm stuck in this and now I'm the victim to it and it has more power than me, is, okay, this is here, this energy's here right now, this situation's here right now. What choice did I make that created this? And now what choices do I have available that I've never chosen? And that just takes us from, holy shit, I'm in a pile of mud that I couldn't get out of, to there's the pile of mud, I'm getting out of it.
Yeah. And what else is possible? Yeah, I love
And what
that.
else is possible? And that's a good question.
Oh, Brandon, man, thank you so much for that. Brother, before I let you go, I'd love to feel into, when you feel into an inspired evolution, what does that mean to you? Like, when you're feeling into like a future, is it people are able to basically be free of judgment, they have the choice of possibility? Like, what does your inspired evolution for the collective, for yourself, look like? What's your vision?
Oh, yes to a lot less judgment, but also yes to a whole lot more kindness, but also the recognition that we have so much more available than what we can see, what we've been told. And it's like, what if we had a world where a lot more of the kindness was there, and a lot more of the honoring of each other, and a lot more of the question of, you know what else is possible right now? And also a lot more vulnerability with ourselves to look at the choices that we're making and go, you know what, I'd really like a planet to live on for the next 1,000, 10,000 years. And I may just be me, but the choices I'm making are creating part of that too. So what would I like to be that actually would be the energy of that into the future, and start, and people would look at that and go, yeah, but that's a whole lot of pressure to put on me. Well, not really. If you look at it and go, you know what, I'd like a future of lightness, like a future where anything is possible, where people actually contribute to each other, and well, as many of us as possible create something, and we all recognize that just because I'm me, I am connected to everyone and anything and everything. And it's like, I'm going to start making those choices today that have more of a sense of that. And it's like, when you do that, when you take yourself out of this, well, it's just little old me, into, wow, it's just me, but I'm going to be part of that too, is everything starts showing up way easier and way more magical.
Brother, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much for sharing yourself so abundantly, openly. And you know, I can easily just thank you for your time here today, but I know it's a lifetimes of work that goes into informing this conversation here today. So, man, thank you so much for your walk and the way you show up in the world and the work that you're doing. And Brazil's really blessed to have you right there, right now. It's one of my favorite
Thank you.
countries. Bro, on behalf of myself and the Inspired Evolution tribe and audience, wishing you all the best going forward as well. And yeah, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, my friend. And thank you for everything that you're contributing. Your show is awesome, and you're awesome.
Big love. Yoo! Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, leave us a comment. And if you want to stay in tune for new episodes launching every Monday, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay inspired to evolve.